So I want to finish up chapter one of No Self, No Problem. I want to finish off with an exercise very similar to the one I do in the book. It's real simple. Wherever you're at, just take a look around and just make a mental note of all the things that you see. So I don't know what your list will be, but mine is a phone, a pen, some glasses, a cup, a book, a window, and it doesn't really matter, but whatever your list is, that's your list. Now, there's a couple things I want to point out about this exercise. The first is everything around us has a verbal label to it, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, at some point in our lives, probably when we were really young, if you're a parent, you might even remember this, when we took our kids, and we pointed to things and we told them what these sounds were, and we say that's a car, that's a cup. That's interesting that parents have a tendency while they're doing this, they're using their right hand to point to the objects, which of course is controlled by the left side of the brain, the language-based part of the brain. And so we're pointing around the world and we're saying, this is this and this is this and all of that. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But one of the things we're going to deal with is our tendency to confuse a symbol with the actual thing. And sometimes this is referred to as confusing the map for the territory, or sometimes even eating the menu. And so, you go into a restaurant and the menu is a symbol of all the things you could order. It would be really weird if you just started to eat it. The thing is that I get into this quite a bit in the next few chapters, that is one of the biggest mistakes that we make in modern culture. Because we have this capacity to symbolize and create sounds that represent all the, quote, things around us, sometimes we become so much more interested in those symbols and we lose sight of the fact of the reality that's going on around us. And that's why sometimes we'll spend so much time taking pictures, symbols of some particular event, and we lose out on the actual event itself. So that's the first thing I want to point out about the exercise. The second is something we'll also deal with towards, second half of the book. And we'll get into our lack of recognizing space itself, the importance of space, the existence of space. So whatever your mental list was, I could practically guarantee that space, emptiness, wasn't on it. Even though emptiness is absolutely critical. It's like the ocean that the fish is swimming in. It's just so everywhere that the fish doesn't notice it. And we have the same issue. Even though if there was no space, how could you get up? How could you do anything? How could you move? The very fact that everything isn't crushed into one infinitesimally small point, like before the Big Bang, the only way that isn't the case is through space, through emptiness. And some very interesting things happen when you become conscious and aware of the space around you. So one more thing about kind of looking around the world and pointing, giving verbal labels, a little bit inspired by Douglas Harding and his whole exercise on having no head, is if you're pointing and labeling all the things around you, it's kind of a cool thing to finish off by pointing inward. So as you point around, you say, well, that's a cup and that's a phone, and the exercise by pointing at your own self and explore what kind of verbal label comes out of that, if one at all. And so we'll come back and we'll deal with some more left brain stuff, but eventually we'll get to space and we'll get to emptiness and how that relates very interestingly, I think, to consciousness.